I had to make sure I turned off the right one. How are you?
No,
I didn't want to cut you off.
okay, that's okay. Good to see you.
Good to see
Let me
you.
get my nose back in order here.
Yeah. Tell her to quit running around.
There you go. Stay put.
Oh my goodness.
My goodness. So this is the last week of October when the veil is thinnest.
Ooh.
Traditionally, as far as we understand it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun this week because I did the um an author talk at the community college where I work at yesterday, and then today we gathered and a bunch of us told ghost stories. So that was
Oh,
fun. Yeah.
oh, that is fun.
Yeah.
And the
So
college is Rockingham Community
community
College.
college, yeah, just north of Greensboro.
Yeah,
Not to be
Rockingham.
confused with the city.
There
And there's
you
another RCC, Randolph Community College. People really get confused.
Yikes. A lot of
Yeah.
rerouted phone calls,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So, but we should be back on Facebook. I'm out of Facebook jail. Yay!
Yay! Congratulations.
There you go.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So if you want to, is it people, guests, and listeners, welcome back and welcome to the show. We're happy to have you, regulars and newcomers. Glad to have you. My name is Margot, and this is Iris, and we are your co hosts for Eyes of Indigo. And if you'd like to talk to us during the show, we welcome that. We encourage that. Feel free to write your questions or comments or whatever you want to share with us in the comments section of the chat, either on Facebook or YouTube. And Iris will either pop up the your comment or question on the screen, and we will say it out loud because, or we'll read the question out loud as well, because this show is also shown and rerun in audio venues such as Spotify. And so people that are listening only can also benefit. So please let us know that you're out there. That's the best way for us to know. Make a comment, just say hi, just let us know where you're from or your name or whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, but we like it.
Yeah, it's one way to know you're there because the numbers that we see aren't very accurate on our end. And we may or may not know who's there. Sometimes it's lonely on this side, and we want to know that people are out there.
Talking to an echo, absolutely.
We can tell from the numbers of watches once we get
Get
out
off
of
the
it.
air.
You
Yeah.
can tell, yes, there were people watching, but if you don't tell us, we don't always know in this thing that we use.
End up being all alone. But for entertainment purposes, we have a very interesting topic that's
Yes.
very akin to the time of year. Iris, where are we going tonight?
We're going with near death experience, and it's kind of an extension from last week talking. What were we talking about last?
I don't know.
Uh,
Um,
I can't remember, but it was that's terrible. God.
that tells you how much focus we got. We are in the moment, and
Yes.
last week is gone as far as we're concerned.
But it was God, that's terrible. It was about death and dying and suicides and euthanasia, not to be confused with young teenagers in China.
Chinese teenagers.
Yeah. Euthanasia, yes, I love it. But we wanted to talk about NDEs, and in our pre-show trying to get ourselves organized, it was amazing how much stuff we came up with, and it was like, you know what, we might have a couple of more programs here. But yeah, and is near-death experience real or imagined? Is it sci-fi or sci-phooey? That was my play on words. So anyway, NDEs is what we're going to be focusing on. And um yeah, so I think over time I remember being fascinated because like back in the 70s there were a lot of talk shows that would have people on talk about your near death experience, and everybody would notice that it was the same, a lot of similarities from experience to experience. People would talk about the white tunnel and the people standing at the around waiting on them and then being told no, you need to go back, or whatever, or it might be very quick, and feeling that instant connection with the all it is, and the unconditional love,
Right. The
which
great
can,
vastness of love. Yeah.
right. And since that caused, because so many people had similarities, that caused a lot of doctors and scientists to say, that's just the brain and going into, and it must be, um because it is so similar from person to person, that it must be a reaction in the brain, and it was like, yeah, right. um
No, the
it,
brain's dead. There's nothing going on. It's dead.
right. And that
Yeah.
was one of the things that I went to a couple of Eben Alexander's talks. This is one of his books, and he also wrote Proof of Heaven. Proof of Heaven was his first book, and he is from North Carolina, Virginia. I can't remember which order. I don't. I think he was from Charlotte, and he went to UNC Chapel Hill, and he went to. He worked
Virginia's
in
where they.
Virginia. Yeah, I went to school there. Anyway, he became a neurosurgeon, and he has written textbooks on neurology. He has taught as well as practiced for many years. And his book, Proof of Heaven, is his recollection of his own near death experience, where he got a bacterial, not viral, but bacterial meningitis, very rare, something that originated from like Africa, one of the countries in Africa. And he happened to get it. They're not even sure how he got it.
Mm.
It's very, very rare. But he said he started feeling like he was come down with the flu, and he was getting ready for work, and his wife was trying to convince him, take a day off, you need your rest. And he was arguing with her and then just passed out, and he was unconscious. Um, they got him in the hospital and hooked him up, and
He was
uh,
in a coma at that
he was in
point.
a coma, and his brain was not functioning. The only thing that was functioning was a little bit of his brain stem, just enough to keep him alive, but there was no brain activity.
No higher
um
functions.
right. And he when he about a week, after about 7 days, well, after about 5 days, the doctor was telling his wife, and it was a very good friend of his that was his doctor, and said, if we took him off the equipment, he wouldn't survive, and people don't come back from this just does not happen. And she put in a last ditch effort. There was somebody that they had heard of, and I'm just going to pull the girl's name up again, the woman's name, Karen Newell. And she is from Acoustics, sorry, Sacred Acoustics. Um, and it was somebody that they had heard about through a friend of his wife's, and she was known to be able to retrieve people who were in a coma, or help them let go if they,
If they wanted to.
if
Yeah.
they wanted to. And she was able, she has another book herself that talks about her side of things, but I've seen her and Eben talk together,
Ooh.
and which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And she talks about, like meditating and going to the edge and calling out for him to come.
You're talking about going to the edge of consciousness, so to speak, between
Yeah,
life and death, and where coma people hang out. That
yeah.
kind of edge. Just to be
Edge of
clear,
heaven is, or whatever the afterlife. In other words, like going,
maybe
leaving
what we
her
would call the
conscious.
veil.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
he had gone deep into it, and
sure.
it took her a long time to, like hours and hours to get him to come back. And help him remember who he was and what was happening here, because
Yeah,
he was having a good time. And when you read his book and he describes the colors and all that, and while he was over there, he was adopted as a child, didn't know anything about his original family, and there was a woman there. They never really talked, but she showed him, like, they kind of gave him a grand tour and was, sharing things with him. And when he came back, he did some research and found out it was his sister who had passed away before he knew about her. That she was already
she had
gone.
already deceased. Yeah,
Yeah. And
so family and loved ones that confirms what I've been hearing all my life. Family and loved ones that go before you tend to show up when you die
yeah.
to as a reassurance and sometimes as guides if they agree to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So she must have agreed to that. Yeah.
And it took him a while to get back his memories. When he came back, he had to kind of learn to walk and talk and that sort of thing again. But as his cognitive self came, more into being independent, his memories of that were all coming back too. And he'd remember little things, but then he was talking to his son about it, and his son said, "You need to write this stuff down before you forget." And so he started recording it even before he had completely come back with all his faculties, and then was able to build on it. And he looked at all of the charts, the EEG readings, looked at his medical history and all of that, which was very well recorded. And
Yeah.
he knows for himself that this wasn't just his imagination. The brain could do none of what he experienced
He
based
knew
on the
that from his own
conditions.
studies. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he said, I went somewhere else, and it changed his whole way of thinking. He
Yeah.
started dealing with patients differently, and, talking to others that had had NDEs and that kind of thing, and just totally changed his world. And he is among those at the Art of Living Retreat Center in Boone, North Carolina now, where they have all kinds of like meditation and you know programs like meditation retreats. They have presentations, relax and really relax, R&R. I can't, rest and relaxation. And
When was that founded or started? Does it
I
say what year it started?
I would have to dig a little bit. Let's see, about.
I'm sorry. There he
Yeah,
goes.
no, it's fine. I'm looking. Oh, well, no, Sri Ravi Shankar was the actual founder. And
So
then
he's
they've
a
got all these.
so he's an educator facilitator
Yes,
at that place. All right.
yes.
See, I graduated Appalachian State in Boone in 1990. I'm just curious if their time there started before or after I was there.
Yeah.
That's all. I can do some research and find that out. Don't worry about it.
1997, he was doing some stuff. So it was after that. It's not very, very old. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so,
That's only 25, 35 years. Yeah.
yeah. So it's huge. So
Hmm.
that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of the premise that we're starting with,
Yeah.
and what does happen, and
Stories that we know and media that we've run across on the
yeah.
subject that we want to share with you guys.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so if you have anything to add, please,
Or
again,
ask.
add or ask, comment, say hello, please.
Please feel free. Part of where we got onto this subject also is that both Iris and I are intuitives. So we do talk to I get souls that are past and deceased once in a while. Um, I actually do it a lot. That's the number one request I get is to channel or listen to or pass on messages to like deceased spouses, mothers, fathers, children, stuff like that. Um, so this topic is a reoccurring one in the life of Iris and in the life of Margot. What it's like on the other side. And so, talking about people who have done that, the near death experience people who have gone to the other side and come back. Um, and Iris just gave us a real cool story about a lady that calls people back, and Eben Anderson is an NDE himself, which is very cool. When she mentioned that story, she reminded me of another one that I didn't go into that I didn't go much into at all in our pre-show
Yeah.
conversation that involved a car accident. And the story goes, and this story is documented in the magazine series called Reiki Magazine, which is edited and published by William Lee Rand. And this story is about 10, 12 years old. And I'll try to make it a little shorter because it is a whole long article. But essentially, a lady who was a Reiki practitioner and was enjoying her Reiki studies lived in LA, was driving to work, and typical of LA traffic, gridlock stopped. The highways were completely filled up and stopped. And because an accident had happened a few miles up, and she saw, she could see the emergency vehicles and the ambulance woo 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 came by, so she knew somebody was hurt. And she had learned long distance Reiki, so sitting there in her car, she made a conscious choice. You know what? I'm not going to get upset about the traffic. Somebody up there is hurt and might be suffering or even dying or dead. So instead, I'm going to use what I've learned lately and just send that person, whoever it is, because the ambulance just went by, send that person some Reiki and unconditional regard or unconditional love. And they're obviously having a 10 times worse day than I am.
Yeah.
So she sat in her car and just meditated on sending this person love and light. And eventually, the emergency vehicles moved away, the traffic went on, and her car was able to move, and she went about her life. About a year later, she was at home in the LA area, and there was a knock on the door in the middle of the day, and there was a lady, a stranger, standing in the doorway who she didn't recognize. And the stranger lady said, "Are you so and so?" And she said, "Yes, I am. How can I help you?" And she said, "Well, you don't know me, but I found you because I want to say something to you that maybe you remember. About a year ago, there was a huge accident on highway such and such in LA on such and such date. And I'm a bicyclist. In that accident, a car hit me and I died. And at the scene of the accident, while the paramedics were working on me, I died. And after I died, I remember I left my body and started floating up. And I could look down and see my body and the paramedics and the cars and the smashed glass and the ambulance and the highway and all the cars lined up behind it, stuck on the highway, and people beeping. And I was raising up through the sky, and I was feeling much better, and I was very much at peace, and I was very relaxed, and I was feeling hopeful, and I was enjoying my slow rise, into what was very divine. And as I was floating out over the traffic through the sky, there was a golden beam of light coming out of one car.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps.
There was one golden, and as I intersected that beam of light hit me. As soon as it hit me, I remembered how much I love my husband, how much I love my children, how much I love my life, and how these people needed me and I needed them. And at that point, I knew I had a choice to stay or go. And I decided I very much wanted to stay because I love these people and they love, my family loves me and I love them. So I decided to come back, and I went and I just went real fast, and I jumped back in my body, and the paramedics put me on life support, took me to the hospital, and it took me almost a year of rehab to be able to walk and talk again because I was completely smashed on that bicycle by that car. And the reason I'm talking to you is because I know that you're the one in the car. Because as I was floating up and I saw that golden beam of light, I could see which car it was coming out of, and I could read the license plate digits on the front of your car. And I remember them all the way through coma and rehab and everything else. I remember those digits. I'm thinking she remembered digits in the sequence, in the right order after all that brain trauma and emotional and spiritual and physical trauma. She remembered all that. She remembered the license plate number of that car that was sending out the gold beam, and she traced it and came to that address to tell that lady, "Thank you for saving my life."
Wow, that is amazing.
That is cool. And yeah, energy medicine can do that. Even when you have no idea. So we have a visitor, Cherie Clegg.
Yay!
Hi, ladies. I think you have come to visit us before, have you not? Their name looks familiar.
She
all the
said
way
she'd
from
be back,
Oregon.
and she is. Yes.
Yay! Yeah, it's about supper time in Oregon. For us, it's almost 10 o'clock. For you, it's about 7-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
6:37. Wonderful. Good to see you again, sweetie. We're talking about near-death experiences, as you might have figured out.
Yeah.
So,
And
what's another
Cherie
one?
might be interested. I got to plug. My niece opened a new shop in Portland, and it's open like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's kind of an eclectic store, and it's I've got
The
to
name
look
of
for
it.
it and see. Yeah, I've got Janet.
So your niece's
Higher. My niece's store is called oh man. We had a conversation and I'm trying to look. It's called Higher Self, and it's on Holgate Boulevard,
Holgate Boulevard.
Holgate. She put a couple of my copies of my books on her shelf, and we're going to see if they get sold
Care
or
and
not.
feeding of ghosts and the children who see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
So Cherie says she has an issue. Today is my mother's death anniversary day of 21 years. Yeah.
Wow.
That's quite a landmark for you, Cherie. She said she would check that out. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the passing of parents. That's related to something we were talking about before the show, as well as when our own time comes to pass, when it's our own time to go, our our loved ones that are sacred or special to us will actually be there on the other side when the people talk about the tunnel of light and all that good stuff, and that there's loved ones or Jesus or Muhammad or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
Moses, Mary Magdalene, whoever, Saint Bernadette, I don't know, whoever you want to be on the other side will be there. And I bet the read and the feel I'm getting, Cherie, is that your mother will definitely be there to reassure you and shower you with love and give you guidance when you first step into the other side someday.
Oh,
And my baby is one, and her dad's mother is in critical condition as of today. All right, then. So you got a lot of energy moving and shifting in your family right
yeah.
now. And how old is the? You say my baby is one. Is your baby a tiny baby, or is that a child that you refer to as baby, like moms do?
Well, I'm
And
taking it if the baby's a year old, maybe that's what she's
that's
saying.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, and
They are close. They are closer to the other side than we are,
yeah,
which is where I
don't
was
be
going with that.
surprised when she becomes more articulate if she doesn't start
Telling
talking.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, October 26th. Yeah. She'll
Yeah.
start, yeah, babies that are that young can articulate more and more if you let them, as parents, if you allow them to talk about what they remember from before they were born.
A baby, my husband. I'm not sure. I don't understand.
Maybe she meant to write my husband when she wrote my baby.
Oh, I don't know.
So the typing's, the keyboard's not keeping up with you as well as fast as you're typing, Cherie.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So Iris and I came up with a list of a few other people that were also famous doctors and speakers about near death experiences. And the two I came up with were Jill Bolte Taylor and Dr. Brian Weiss. Actually, not him, Michael Newton, Dr. Michael Newton. So, but Iris, it's your turn to talk.
Holy
did
cow.
you did you have? I mean, there were also some movies that we thought of.
Yeah, I was gonna both. I mean, there's a variety of. We've already talked before about how movies and television programs give a lot of insights and what we call reveals,
Right.
because they're written to tell us in so many words what is,
Educate us.
yeah, to educate us, and sometimes how things get manipulated, and there are truths that are revealed where you might not realize they're truths. um so we started talking about different movies, movies that talk about life after death, and came up with some funny ones and some weird ones and some um
Philosophical
and I
ones.
just thought another one. Um, Jacob's Ladder. If you've never seen Jacob's Ladder, a lot of people have you seen it?
Nope.
Oh, it is so. It gives me goosebumps to think about it. And I had to watch it. The first time I watched it, I fell asleep. Because it was just so intense, and I was
Okay.
tired and I wasn't getting it, and I'm
So
going,
you saw it
God, this
twice?
movie's, yeah. Well, I've seen it now about 5 or 6 times at least,
Okay.
and it every time I see it, I pick up something else.
Mm. Those are some of
But
the coolest ones. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's got Tim Robbins in it,
Oh, he's
and
good. Yeah.
and he plays a character who was in the Vietnam War,
Okay.
and
Okay.
he comes back. He's living with a woman. He's divorced and has two small children, and he comes back and starts having like hallucinations, and he meets up with some of the other guys that he was in the war with, and
War buddies. Yeah.
they're trying to
Um.
remember what happened. What did the government do to us while we were over there? They drugged us. They did something.
Oh.
And they get like an insider that's feeding them tidbits and
Oh,
information and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And I don't want to give away too much, but it's helpful if you recognize this in the beginning because you'll understand it a lot more. He's in the process of figuring out he's dead.
Sort of like Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
M.
yeah,
Night
but very
Shyamalan.
different. I mean, the stuff that's going on, like he goes to a party with his girlfriend, and he really don't want to be there. And people are dancing and drinking and stuff, and so he's just trying to chill out. And his girlfriend is dancing, and he sees like a serpent's tail come out from under her dress, and it's like, what the hell is
Hmm.
that? And he ends up going having a seizure and being put in a cold bath, and they call a doctor in, and his girlfriend was so worried. But then while he's out from that, he's having hallucinations and memories of his other
That
wife.
is intense.
It's very intense to figure out what is real, what's not real, what's and he has a chiropractor that comes and kind of rescues him from the hospital. And the chiropractor is, I can't remember the guy's name. God, he's such Danny Aiello. No, might be Danny Aiello.
Another famous actor
Yeah,
of some sort.
but it's a
That's
very
cool.
intense movie. But it's very cool. And when you realize, like after it's over, you go, "Holy shit!" And then it just all kind of starts. And then it's like, "No, I got to watch this again."
And let it fall, the pieces fall in together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. All right.
So
So that's Jacob's Ladder.
yeah,
Sixth Sense was
another
a
one.
watered down version of that, it sounds like.
Yeah. And then Always with Holly Hunter and
Holly
Richard
Hunter.
Dreyfuss.
Yep. Always is another one. What Dreams May Come. Robin Williams.
Oh, that was a beautiful movie.
That was a really pretty one. It's fairly accurate as well. And then we found a movie that's been remade 3 times under 3 different names. And you recall what they were?
I remember the main one that most people remember is the one that had Warren Beatty in it and was Heaven Can
Yes.
Wait. And it was
Yes.
originally, I can't remember, it was made in the like 41, but I can't remember.
Jordan.
Yeah. Because Mr. Jordan was the guy that was helping the character.
That was his guide. Right.
Yeah.
The spirit guide.
And so you have Jordan, then Heaven Can Wait, and then Chris Rock did a version of it, and that one was called
Down to Earth.
Down to Earth, yes.
Down to Earth.
And so he plays a black guy that's put back into the body of an old white man.
Heaven Can Wait. He's a football player put into a rich guy's body.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really cool. Those a funnier one, Beetlejuice.
Yeah, they even have a manual in that movie.
They even have a manual in that movie that you can actually buy. It's on Amazon.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they created a.
Yeah, they actually created a book and it sells. Beetlejuice is not far off. Part of what we were going to talk about tonight is while there are some basic understandings about life after death, such as when you first pass over, you are going to experience a type of tunnel and moving through it and light at the other end, and you're also going to run into loved ones. However, there's variations on that, and there's also a lot of variation of what happens after that. And speaking from my experience, Iris, and please, I want you to share what you've learned from talking to the other side and talking to other near-death experienced people. Essentially, whatever happens on the other side is largely, not completely, but largely based on your belief system, such as people who like to follow Jesus and God and Christianity. They have a tendency to show up and Jesus shows up first, and they talk to an entity that they feel is God, and they see a cloudy like heaven where everybody has wings and the streets of gold, and they don't have to go back to earth. They don't have to reincarnate. They can stay there in heaven, and they can keep their focus on just that, or they can expand it to the other expansions of realities that are available besides just heaven.
So it's kind of like you go with what you know.
You go with what you know. Yeah, people that believe in hell and damnation and condemnation will experience of their version of that as well. Purgatory is a real interesting concept that exists across, in some form, exists across most forms of belief systems. And there is a type of holding space that's kind of a purgatory, except it's not related to atonement and punishment beyond what you impose on yourself. And it's sort of a halfway house that's secluded so that you're not dealing with the energy of being a human or of being a free soul out in the cosmos. You're kind of in the middle, processing the damage and and or the life lessons that you just came out of learning, such as Adolf Hitler is going to be in there processing for a long time. Jeffrey Dahmer is going to be in there processing for a long time. Mother Teresa is going to be in there processing for a long time. Bill Gates is going to be parked in there a hell of a long time. And these people are processing. Usually people go to that sort of, for lack of a better word, purgatory, because they've done painful, negative things that caused huge ripples in the fabric of of the universe, and cosmic ripples for all other living beings. And they have to contemplate karmically what that means or doesn't mean, depending on how they choose to process it for them. And so that seems to be fairly universal across the belief systems. Now,
Remember
that's
to
my experience. What about you?
well, and I think it's good to we punish ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not like a punishment or reward system. Dying does not,
Not
oh,
really.
good boy, or bad dog.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, dying actually is not a punishment. It's kind of fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to figure it out. And some of the readings and stuff that I've done, I mean, I know that, like, we talked a little bit about this last week. Like, if you commit suicide, it's just sort of you can there have been people that have killed themselves that have said, I just can't do the human thing anymore, and they
Right.
have other jobs and duties, and they do kind of process through it.
Right.
I've seen, um I've talked to people who were in the process of dying and knew they were, but it was kind of like they, like a friend of mine was dying of cancer and was already in a coma, and I saw him, and he was very happy and glad to be agile and free again. And when I mentioned his family, and are you, how do you, I was curious
How
how,
you
as somebody
process
who's
that?
dying, how, what do you, and he was like, they'll be fine, it's my time. And he was,
It's
and I
not
was like,
about them. Yeah, it's not
yeah.
about them.
And so that
Right.
was really cool.
Yeah.
I've I'm trying to think, there was somebody else. I know that people who have died will sometimes make themselves known, especially if you're thinking about them. They'll let you know, and it's like, and some people go, oh, isn't that cool, they're letting us know that they're thinking
Mm.
about us. No, we're thinking about them, so they're letting us know that they heard us.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good clarity.
Yeah,
Boom. Yeah.
it's
You put. Yeah.
yeah.
They're responding to the ripple you're putting out. Right.
Yeah, and yeah, pennies from heaven. I talked
Yeah.
about that a little bit today in the ghost stories, because I've had them come up at odd times in odd places, and
Pennies,
new.
paper clips, nickels, earrings, earring bag, little tiny things will show up in weird places.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, And it also reminds me of all this reminds me of Defending Your Life with Meryl
Oh, that's
Streep.
the one I was trying to remember. Yeah, Defending Your Life. That's
That one
another
is
famous one.
it's hysterical, written by Albert Brooks. So
It's going to be
he's
hysterical. Yeah.
yeah, and it's that process of reviewing your life and knowing your station and where you were, and they kind of sort you out to make you more comfortable, and you know um and just some people go easily through it and other people don't, and the guy keeps going, well, is this good or bad? My review's taken so many days, is that good or is that bad? And it's like, there is no good and bad, and he just could not get that concept. It
That
was
right. He kept struggling with it. I
yeah.
remember that. There's another movie that struggles with the concept of good and bad and life after death and so on. That's also got a comedic element that you mentioned earlier, Michael by John Travolta.
Yeah.
That's a terrific one about, especially at the end of the book, end of the movie, obviously, about what life is like on the other side. The character makes a lot of commentary about it, about what life's
Yeah.
like on the other side.
And
You all,
and it's like he's, then he keeps telling him, like they're going, well, you've got wings, but why he was kind of rough around the edges and that sort of thing, and
and
they
crude.
yeah, and crude, and he'd go, I'm not that kind of angel.
I'm not that kind of angel. He was drinking and smoking and fornicating and flirting. I put a block on you. Yeah, all the ladies kept coming at him because he smelled so good and had vibe, except for the one lady he was traveling with in the group. And he said, "Why isn't she attracted to you?" He said, "Put a block on you." And he's sort of imitating the stereotypical Jewish conversational flair. It was very cute.
Yeah, and
The
then and
United States
then
Jew. Yeah.
and she kept saying, "Oh, I know now why," because she kept thinking, "Is somebody baking cookies? Or what?" And she
Yeah.
kept smelling vanilla, and she couldn't figure out why different women were smelling different things.
Some were smelling, baby powder, cut grass, cookies, all kinds of things. They were smelling and it was him. It was
Hmm.
him. Now you also named a really cool. You named and described a really cool movie, Vanilla Sky, done by Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, and honestly, I cannot remember the whole concept, but basically, it's him. He's kind of a rich asshole, basically, young kid.
Right.
And um there's a series of things that happen, and it's like he keeps reviewing it. It keeps different things happen, and it's like one time he's talking to one woman, and then the next time he's talking to another with the same conversation in a different way, and it's like, and there's something in there, I can't remember the whole
That
deal,
sounds
but
like multiple dimensionality.
either multiple
That's what.
dimensionality, or he's kind of reviewing or reliving things in different ways. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there it was like, once I realized, it was sort of like Jacob's Ladder. Once I realized what was going on, and I'm pretty sure
Got
he
clear.
died. Yeah, but I'm not positive. But it was very much.
But it's one you would recommend go
Yeah,
see, or yeah, to go find
yeah,
it and see it. Yeah,
definitely. And
excellent. Made in Heaven.
Made in Heaven was a movie from like the 80s with, I can't think of his name, but it had Kelly McGillis in it, and she plays somebody who's never been born yet. This guy dies, and he goes back, and
Oh,
he sees his aunt or his grandmother, and they're living like in a little apartment or something, and they're telling him, all you have to do is think about us, and you'll come here. They're trying to teach him how to get around and that sort of thing. And you can do what you want, you can live where you want, we just like what we're used to. And so they live in a modest apartment. um but like, he goes and visits this girl, he meets this girl, and they fall in love. But she's like, I'm going back. I'm getting ready to go be born for the first time, and I'm all excited about that. And he's like, I've had enough of the life. And so
he
it's like,
doesn't want
what,
to go back,
he
right?
don't want to go back. So what what's the deal, what's going to happen. And it's just a very poignant, and you get lots of insights on that. That also reminds me a little bit of Chances Are. um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, okay, Heather Hilton says she watched Vanilla Sky and
Had to
had to
watch it
watch it.
twice.
Yeah. It was a weird movie, but I know it was something about the cosmos and death, and I need to go back and see it because it has been a while since I've seen it, but I knew it had something to do with that.
You know
Um,
what? You're reminding me of another movie that came out like only 1 or 2 years ago. It's not Contact. It was the one where the aliens came down to Earth and these
Arrival.
giant Arrival and these giant eggs, and you realize that the
Oh
whole movie at the end of the movie you realize that the whole movie is actually a time loop.
no, it's not a time loop.
Not
Time,
exactly.
time. She discovers that she has the ability to jump around in time because time is not linear.
That's you know what that describes it much better than the time loop. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Heather says she loves Chances Are.
Yes,
Absolutely, she
God,
saw that
that's
one too.
hysterical.
Yeah,
That one's m- uh Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. and Neil no
I'm
Neil
writing stuff down
Tatum
of the good
O'Neal.
ones that we're thinking
Who's
of.
Tatum O'Neal's dad?
Ryan
Ryan
O'Neal.
O'Neal. Ryan O'Neal's in it, and the model from the Last Picture Show. Um
I don't know that one.
the Last Picture Show.
I know that's supposed. I know. I know it's an iconic social icon, and I've heard it referred to a million times, and I've never seen it.
The same person that wrote that wrote Terms of Endearment and Lonesome Dove. There's like so many different.
Never saw Terms of Endearment. Did see Lonesome Dove several times.
Yeah. Larry McMurtry. He has just such a wide range of, but
That means he's
um
cabal.
is he?
Yeah. If
How
you're
do you
that,
do?
yeah, if you're that famous and that popular and
Oh,
that prolific in
you've at
Hollywood,
least gotten an invitation, right?
there's only one way to the top. Before now,
Mm.
before now.
Um.
But some of those people were plants, and they worked for the good guys and the nefarious guys.
Yeah.
Two-sided. We know that.
But anyway.
Alec Baldwin plays both sides, by the way. Thinking about the latest news.
Yes.
If you find out who died and find out what Baldwin has done both ways
Mm-hmm.
and what she did before she died. Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look some
Died.
more.
Mm-hmm. Bunny quotes. But anyway, I digress. Well, we are talking about dying, aren't we?
Yeah. Are they dead or are they not? And bang,
Are they dead? Are they not? And even if your body's dead, are you really dead? No, we don't think you are. That's part of that near death experience stuff that we're talking about. How did not humans? Energy is infinite, cannot be
Yeah,
destroyed.
right.
Yeah.
My
So
ninth grade
living,
physics class taught me that.
yes, your
Well,
body
probably
can
that's the only
stop.
thing I remember from ninth grade physics. But I remember that 'cause it was like,
Oh, I
huh?
remember sex. I remember reproduction and sex ed from ninth grade.
We didn't have that. Well, we did minimally, but most of mine was in sixth grade.
They gave us beginner stuff in sixth grade too. Yeah, they did. But that's where it all starts. That's where life starts, and that's where eventually um, it starts again if you choose to reincarnate. And that's another good question too: is the pros and cons of believing in reincarnation. And there's overwhelming evidence that reincarnation is a standard MO. This is a standard procedure everywhere in the cosmos because energy cannot be destroyed. And it sure as hell does not stay still forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
That's one of the defining characteristics of what is energy. It's something that's in perpetual motion, whether you can perceive it or not. Your
I remember
perception of it
reading
does not define it.
I remember reading years ago, when the Council of Nicaea, or however you say it, was
Nicaea, yeah,
putting together the Bible and choosing which books and
and
rewriting
rewrote it.
and editing
Yeah,
it. Yeah, they they took out all of the references to reincarnation because they said people will just think they get another chance, and so we won't be able to control them.
You can't control, but yeah, and that's just it. You can't control reincarnated people that way unless you make them believe that doesn't happen. Ta-da.
Yeah, and it's like, so you better be good the first time because
They don't want you that empowered.
you better watch out. You better not pout.
Cry.
You're being watched. Yeah.
And that, you know what, that might be a discussion that we might want to look at in December. The dark side of Santa Claus, of the concept of Santa Claus, which includes the Krampus and quite a few other belief systems. But there's a dark side to the concept of what Santa Claus is supposed to be. And so maybe in December we'll cover that more. Yeah, put that on the to-do list if you don't mind.
Santa.
Now, one other thing I wanted to share with you guys, we're up to 22 minutes after 10. Another doctor that had done and still does extensive work about reincarnation awareness. His name is Dr. Michael Newton, and he wrote a series of books starting with Destiny of the Soul.
Not to be confused with Isaac.
Yes, absolutely. And the next book he wrote was called Journey of the Soul. And in a nutshell, I'm way shortening down his journey. This guy is, a teacher at a top university, researcher, hardcore, mainstream, didn't believe in the afterlife, was atheistic. When you're dead, nothing happens kind of guy. And he got into hypnotherapy, started regressing his clients to, help them with prior issues, childhood issues, and some of them would accidentally and spontaneously at first regress to before birth and start telling him what was going on before they were born. And so he started regressing more people and taking notes and interviewing it to see if there was a pattern, to see what was going on. And they were telling him about past life experiences, historical events, details about what was going on. He would, like teenagers and children were most of his clients. He'd bring them back. He'd talk to their parents. He'd talk to their teachers, who would ask them, are they studying this in school? Is this something they've studied before? What movies does this child watch? Nothing, nowhere. And the kid knew all about the Napoleonic Wars and personally knew Napoleon himself. Kid was in 5th grade and it had no awareness of French history or British history or European history. All right.
Was his name Bill or Ted?
You got fresh one there. Absolutely. So he went on to do more and more research, started charting out who did what where, and it was very, very consistent. What he was finding out, again, I'm going to nutshell down a lot. What he was finding out is that there are what we would describe as being 3D creatures, and I'm speaking in a 3D language right now. There were basically echelons of how evolved or advanced a soul is. In other words, a soul who has barely reincarnated or not reincarnated much at all, to one that has gained much more wisdom and reincarnated so many times, to another level of you've reincarnated and lived many lives, and you did these particularly poignant learning experiences that really escalated your wisdom, awareness on a cosmic scale. You become a teacher, become a healer, you can manipulate the universe, on and on and on. And he quickly noticed a correlation between color, what that soul looked like in the mind's eye, and it has a tendency to follow a similar scale to what Iris just popped up on the screen. What is this chart called? The Omega chart?
The Omega, and ultimate consciousness is enlightenment, and the alpha point, and some of the emotions and that go with that, and how it the as you grow in the colors, you become more expanded. Whereas
Yeah.
at the beginning, you're more contracted, which is
When you go
interesting.
down.
Yeah.
And you can see words describing the point indexes. 200, I think, is pretty much the turning point. 250 on this scale. Um, Dr. David Hawkins
Hmm.
used this scale as well to
Ah.
talk about human consciousness and evolution. Once you get past 600, once you vibrate, he called it, once you vibrate past 600, when you die, you have the choice to go on and be infinitely everywhere, sort of a spirit guide, Jesus, archangel kind of thing. Or you can stay on earth, which will still be hard to do, but you can do it. Therefore, people like Jesus of Nazareth and Mohammed and Moses and King David and Mary Magdalene and Ruth and Rachel, they were all, vibrated in theory along this theory. They all vibrated 600 and above and stayed here to be teachers. And then when they couldn't do it anymore, couldn't stand it anymore, didn't need to be here anymore, that's when they left. So real quick, there's another version of that real quick that I can tell you. Hang on a second. I saved it to my screen. But I don't have the screen sharing capability
Yeah, we'll
that
let
I
up.
didn't get it. I didn't share it with her fast enough. A scale that Michael Newton used to help define what his clients were telling him, and he called them levels. So at level 1, you tend to look the soul color, the aura, the energy field around the soul tends to look white, and that's a beginning soul. Level 2 is red, an advanced soul. A level 3, a yellow aura, is a teacher soul. 4 is green, a healer. 5, blue, master. 6, indigo, which is a bluish purple. And that is get off my screen. Ascended master. And then the last level is what they call being in the Godhead, or your being at one with divinity. And typically 6s and 7s don't reincarnate in human bodies because they vibrate too low. It's too slow. They can't combine.
Ah.
They can't. Yeah, they can't contain it.
Was this it?
That looks right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. You found it.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, this is a more advanced version of what I was talking about. Ew, it even has a page number. Journey of Souls, page 103. As a guide status, what it looks like is, I think if I remember this right, at level 1, beginner on the left side, level 2, lower intermediate, and level 3, intermediate, you're not a guide. You don't guide other people.
That makes sense.
But at level 4 and up, you become different levels of guide: a junior guide, a senior guide, a master guide. And then at the highest level, the old ones, surrounded by radiant purple, deep purple, surrounded by radiant lights. They're basically overseers of everybody else. And they are coming, those are the ones, again, coming from like God consciousness kind of good stuff. So, and this does follow the chakra system, the human chakra system, to an extent. But cosmic colors and chakra colors are different from the human body, and they are different from how we perceive them because our perceptions have been altered over the centuries. So, what the color sequence is, what the rainbow sequence is, that information is going to change over the next 20, 30 years. Don't worry about it. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just interesting. Don't worry about it. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And that
Yeah.
my theory is that it'll look more similar to what we just had up on the screen.
Right.
It'll look closer to that.
Um,
So,
a, a couple of other. I did want to just make mention. There is a really interesting movie called "The Lovely Bones." That
yes.
is, it's a beautifully well done, and the I think her name is Circe Ronan or something like that. It's a weird pronunciation. It's a weird spelling.
It's a
She's
Gaelic
from,
name.
yeah, she's from Ireland, but she has a great American dialect. And she plays a young girl who's 14 years old who is murdered. And after her death, she finds out that the guy who murdered her had murdered several others, and she actually meets these other people.
Wow.
But she's anchored. I mean, she's trying to make sure her family's going to be okay. She's been watching her family, and her perception of the things that were in her life, like her dad was teaching her how to make ships in a bottle. And so, like, there's a scene where she's on the beach and there's all these huge ships on a bottle and they start breaking, and her dad is smashing them. He's upset because she's dead, and
yeah.
different things. And so it's a lot of, I saw that one
Heather
too.
Hilton said she saw that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you realize her, the stages that she goes through and how her perception changes of what was real here versus how it is
Out in
on
the
the flip side.
cosmos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet she's still watching, and like there's one scene where she's with one of the girls who's trying to talk her into, okay, come on, crossover, let's go on, beyond the field, beyond the tree. And
Go to the
keeps,
light.
yeah,
Right.
kind of thing. And she's, I'm not ready yet. But they're kind of like imagining and playing and, running through fields and lots of colors and doing all kinds of fun stuff. But then something happens and she kind of gets thrown back. And then what the family's dealing with, and how her brother's talking to her dad one time, and he says, um, did she come see you? And the dad said, yeah, I think so. And he said, yeah, she comes and sees me too. And so they're
Oh,
aware
so
of
they're
her being,
aware
yeah.
of her being real.
And that's got Mark Wahlberg in it too, and just a couple other people. Susan Sarandon plays the grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's,
That's Tim Robbins' wife.
yes. Well, not
Yeah.
anymore. I think they split, but
They
yeah.
split. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a real good one. And another one that's interesting is Ghost Town, and that one is Ricky Gervais.
That's his name.
Yeah. And he plays a dentist who goes in for surgery and has a near death experience. They try to cover it up, and he goes back to say, what did you do to me when and if they kind of finally fess up, but he's seeing all these ghosts. And these people, once they find out that he can see them, they're like running after him, down the street and stuff. And he's like trying to get away from him. And they're all wanting, and he's always been kind of a stodgy guy anyway. He just wasn't very
loner, right?
Yeah. And they're wanting to get help with their closure, because if they can get help with the closure, then
they can go home.
Yeah. And so
you know what? We're missing the biggest movie of all. Ghost.
Oh yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg, Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
Yeah. That same thing. Somebody who's doesn't go to the light has a tendency to be like a lost soul looking for closure. Yeah.
I remember my sister getting mad at that one. She said, I can't believe God is calling you with the light and you're going to turn around and ignore him.
Yeah.
I said, honey, it's his choice.
God actually gave you the ability to make that choice.
Yeah. But she was like so upset. I can't believe, how could you turn that down? Like,
it triggered her authority issues.
If God says it, of course you go. It's like, well, no.
God suggests it, then of course you can go.
I always get kind of tickled at in the ghost paranormal research and experiences that we had in doing the investigations and stuff. I was always, and I still run across them, people that are like, and we want to help them move on so they can find the light. It just used to grate my nerves to no end because I'm like, they're not lost, they're not stuck,
They're here on purpose.
they're here on purpose. And yes, they can cross over and come back. They can. Woo!
Yeah,
But
they can go back and forth. Yeah.
people are like, yes, we prayed and we helped them move on. And it's like, honey, the only reason they left is because they got tired of listening to you. You know?
They realized they needed to see another little light much further out there.
Oh my God, she's beating a dead
on
horse.
over here. We got bourbon and poker. We're going to have a little more fun. Annie up, what's your poison? We're pouring. James, get over here. Another round for the newcomer.
Yeah. It's like, God, people, let it go. But it's like, I think was Bruce Willis stuck in
Sixth Sense?
No, he was just rediscovering and figuring things out. He did, and he got closure. It's
the stories, it's there. Hollywood, the information is there. You have to be aware of it. Unfortunately, the way they present it, it's a hindsight is 2020, figuring it out after the fact. But all the truths are basically there because cosmic law, they have to tell you the truth even when they're lying to you.
Yeah.
So they've learned clever ways to hide the truth, such as telling you, oh, it's just a movie. No, it's not. It's actually, and some of it is creative.
Yeah.
You got to figure out which is which.
Well, I mean, a lot of the movies of the evil spirits and things like that, where the hauntings and stuff. I was telling people yesterday, most of that is fake. It's meant to scare you. They want you to be in fear.
99% of that is fake. Yeah, it's rarely that bad.
Yeah. So Heather, I'm glad you enjoyed some of the films, and Cherie, I hope this was helpful to you.
Yes, close your eyes and open your senses is Heather's advice. I like that.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? One for Heather.
Yeah. Whee! Yeah.
For sure.
But I think that yeah, we're past our
wraps us back up. Yeah.
And we hadn't discussed what's next week, but we got a bunch of stuff to choose from. If anytime anybody has an idea or they want to know something about something, they're always welcome to send us suggestions as well.
Absolutely. Get on our Facebook page and name some topics you'd like to hear us research and talk about a little bit. We may already know stuff or know people. And we're also open to suggestions for guests. Assuming that they're available. So, so that's cool. But Iris, thank you so much for all these good movie tips and hints. Another one you named was Travelers that can be found on Netflix now.
Yes.
Yeah. Travelers is another movie that's related to this, but that's more about
sci-fi and timeline and jumping and coming from the future, but there's a lot of nuances.
Death and dying to be their vehicles. So, but not in a macabre way, from what I understand you're saying.
No, it's
in a very gentle way.
It's just so well done. It's a really, really cool series. So yeah, catch that one. All right. Well, thank you all again.
Thank you.
And
everyone have a great night. Enjoy enjoy the end of October and the day, All Hallows Eve, and then the day after that, the Day of the Dead, honoring, and the day of All Saints Day in other religions, honoring all those wonderful people who went before us, that we still have their hearts.
Yes.
Namaste.
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 And I'm having trouble getting our little end credits showing. So, and I would have to back out and go in. So we're just going to call it a
Just
night,
gonna sign out.
everyone. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye.
It doesn't want to stop.
It's not stopping.
Okay. I'll catch you on the other side, Margo.
You're gonna have to click off, sweetie. See ya.
Yeah, bye.
Good night, honey.